Hello and welcome to your Astro Tarot forecast for the week of May 5th through May 11th. I'm Michelle Shea Walker, and this is your glass half full perspective on the days to come. If you are a paid subscriber or if you tipped your reader this week, be sure to stick around to the end to see if you won the drawing for the personalized reading. So this week we're doing something a little bit different. First of all, I'm recording this live into the Substack platform, so there will be no edits, so please excuse any ums or flubs in my speech or pauses where I have to kind of collect myself to gather the energy and read it. But we're trying this because I like being in the moment when I'm doing the readings for the week. And also because yesterday it was really overcast and today it was more sunny. So I had to delay recording. Then the other thing I want to do differently is I want to do a bit of sort of like a week ahead overview before we get into the day by day forecast, as well as kind of looking back a little bit at last week's energy. So I like to think of these readings as timeless in a way. Yes, we are talking about specific dates and astrologies and energies based on the cards when I do a day by day forecast, but we also there's advice that's evergreen in all of these readings. So, first of all, feel free to jump around and watch whatever resonates with you, whatever calls to you. If a thumbnail just looks particularly interesting on a reading that is several weeks back, watch it. There might be something there for you. Trust your intuition. But second of all, I really have been personally enjoying going back through the weekly readings after the days have happened to see how the energy landed personally for me. So if you're the type of person that likes to watch these readings at the beginning of this week, first of all, if you're watching it all, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. But if you utilize them as more of a forecast, which the title entails, I encourage you to also kind of do sort of like a retrospective on the week as well. And maybe start to process the lessons from like that sort of hindsight 2020 vision, because I feel like yes, knowing what's to come is really valuable, but being able to integrate and process the lessons is even more valuable. So you're really only doing half the work if you're like knowing what to expect, if you're not reflecting on what happened and what you learned. And maybe you do that on your own and you don't have to utilize the readings, but if you need sort of like an assignment to trigger introspective on a certain topic or a certain day of the week, I encourage you to look back on that day and maybe like, make it a Sunday ritual that you go back through and you kind of listen to the reading again and you think about what happened that day for you and how it was personally resonant and how you can integrate those lessons that you're being presented by the universe. And with that in mind, I want to kind of take a little bit of a mini retrospective on Sunday of last week's reading because Pluto went retrograde. And first of all, that's going to affect us for quite some time because it's going to be retrograde for a while. So it's not just about Sunday's astrology. That's just when it started. And for me personally, it landed very unexpectedly. Pluto is currently in my first house. I'm Aquarius rising. So if you haven't been here before, anytime that there's a talk of houses in astrology, if you know your rising sign, which means if you know your birth time and can look up your rising sign online, then you can figure out what house any astrological sign lands in your chart. There's a couple different ways to do this, but my personal preferred method and the easier way is to count your rising sign as one and count around the zodiac wheel and figure out what number that astrology sign is, and that is the house that is in. So because Pluto is currently in Aquarius, whatever house Aquarius is in your personal natal chart is where Pluto's retrograde is landing. And Pluto has been working in Aquarius for a while. We were in Aquarius, we went back into Capricorn. There's been a whole like tug and pull that's been happening here. But the biggest thing that's been happening with Pluto is that it's kind of an overarching generational planet. So it does affect the grand scheme of things. There's been a lot of talk, myself included, about how Pluto is going back into the sign that it hasn't been in since the French Revolution and the American Revolution. So we're seeing a lot of that sort of like revolutionary, like uprising of the people happening in this energy currently as well. However, internally, it also is a very big change maker. It's about shaking up things and sort of realigning us to our karmic paths. So wherever area of your life, whatever house Aquarius is in that Pluto is currently going through, is going to be the area that you're kind of shaking things up. And for me and for my fellow Aquarius risings, it's basically shaking up how we view ourselves and how the world views us. And so it's kind of like a public image shakeup. So you might have some Aquarius risings in your life that are kind of reevaluating what it is they do for their work or how they present themselves online, or maybe they're doing a new aesthetic. There's a lot of stuff that could be shifting in those areas. But when it's retrograde, whatever area, whatever house that Aquarius Pluto combination is happening in, is being reevaluated. So the great thing about this is because Pluto has been sort of like back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius for a while. So we had some retrogrades happening, but it was transitioning signs and like the energy was getting like really dramatically drastic between the two. So this is our first Pluto retrograde where it's staying in Aquarius. So we really are reevaluating and focusing on the transformation that's happening within the Aquarian areas of our lives, whatever house Aquarius is in. And that's really giving us a moment to reevaluate in a way that we haven't been able to in past retrogrades because we're not going back into Capricorn. We're not kind of switching topics of our lives midway through. So it's really the first time that we're really thoroughly getting to make sure that we're on the right path with this sort of like change up, this shake up in our world. I like to think as retrogrades as sort of like a mini sort of like pop quiz from the universe of like, okay, cool, you were doing X, Y, and Z in this area of your life. Let's give you a quiz to make sure that you like understand the concepts that you're supposed to be integrating and that you really are on the right track here. Like you may be in the entirely wrong class and you need to switch topics, switch subjects. But there's definitely a feeling of with Pluto retrograde, we are still reevaluating the areas of our lives that are currently transforming. And we're making sure that we were actually molding and shaping it into something that we really want it to become, because the clay is still malleable at this point. So we really want to make sure that we're making the statue or whatever that we want it to be. And there can be a little bit of a pause and a little bit of sort of like a regrouping in that area. So if you're in a fellow Aquarius rising, it could be that you potentially like change something about your appearance that you're like, that was kind of on the right track, but let's tweak it just a little bit. Or if you have something happening in your career house, you could be doing something where like you started to change jobs drastically and you realize that actually you don't need to go completely off course. You can still utilize these tools and the skills that you've developed. It can be applied to any different area of your life, essentially. But that's happening right now. And for me, the interesting thing, I'm going to tilt the camera, apologies, is that we are I personally had a very interesting reaction to Pluto going retrograde. It's the only thing that I can kind of correlate the emotions of yesterday to, because there was nothing else going on in my life that was going to be causing me to have the frustrations that I was having. I was irrationally rage filled yesterday. And for no logical reason. It wasn't that I was lacking sleep. For a period of time, it was that I was hangry. And I think that that is a recognizing when I started to reevaluate it and what's happening with Aquarius and Pluto in my life, it's making sure that I'm showing up in the way that I want to be and in the timing that I want to. So if I was in a situation or location that I didn't currently want to be in, and I was going against those instincts and that intuition, it was bringing up extra strong emotions that were not normally how I would react to a situation. And so you might find that that's happening. Like your intuition and your emotional guidance is guiding you in a way that is more intense. So you might find that that pendulum swing through the emotions is going to be really, really drastic. But I want you to really keep in mind that when you're feeling out of sorts in any way, whether it be rage, sadness, discomfort, like whatever non-good emotions, which there's no good or bad emotions, they're all serving us. But when you have emotions that make you feel less than in your higher self, that's usually a sign that whatever you're doing, whatever you're focusing on, whatever path you're currently on is less resonant for your higher self, because you're less in touch with that part of you. And that's why these other emotions are coming up. And again, there's no judgment on these feelings. They are there for a reason. And they're just coming through really intensely right now to make sure you redirect your course. But if you don't know that, you can just sit and stew in the emotions, and start beating yourself up for having them, and it's not productive. So we're going to make this Pluto retrograde productive and tell you that anytime you're feeling a really intense emotion, I want you to stop and look at what you're doing, look at what you're thinking, look at the trajectory your life is currently on in that exact moment, and say, is there something here that is no longer for me? Or do I need to alter this path somehow? Because my emotions are trying to tell me that something here is not in resonance with the higher parts of my soul. So I hope that that little tidbit serves you. And again, that's going to serve us all the way through Pluto retrograde, which is happening for several weeks. So kind of make that a blanket statement. But as we move into this week specifically, we're seeing a couple of different things happening. Astrologically, little overview before we get into the day by day, lots of things with Mercury. So Mercury is the planet of communication, also transportation, technology, but especially communication. It's the way that we interact with the world around us and make sure that we are heard clearly and that we're hearing and perceiving the outside world clearly. So when Mercury is in play with any sort of interactions with other planets, we are always talking about our styles of communication and what we want to say and how we want to speak our truth. And so that's going to be overarching, which is interesting after we have this sort of like preamble of Pluto is going to be showing us what's not for us. We might be having conversations about how we need to tweak certain situations and how we need to ask for what we want in order to realign our paths. In the cards, we have some very interesting stuff happening, and I'm going to get it into specifically in just a moment, but the overarching theme is one of having opportunities that we thought were no longer available to us potentially come back around. And this could be externally or internally. So we might be reevaluating a path in our life or a dream in our life that we thought we'd let go of. Or it could be that like certain relationships, job opportunities, interactions come back around that we weren't expecting. But there is sort of an element of second chances coming forward in the cards this week. So with that overview in mind, we're going to dive in card by card. This week, I'm using the Modern Witch Tarot. So if you're ever interested in those cards, that's where you're going to find those. And our Monday, May 5th card, which is the time that I am recording this video, it's the 6 of Swords reversed. The astrology of the day is Mercury sextile Jupiter. So I want to talk about the card first because it feels more relevant and intense. And then I think there's a little sprinkling of the astrology coming into play with it. So this is where I first started feeling the vibe of second chances coming forward in this week. So there is an element of something that you might not have tied up some loose ends coming back around with this, because when the 6 of Swords is upright, we're moving away from situations that aren't serving us, and it's a forward motion thing. When it's reversed, it can be multiple things, but the thing that my intuition naturally guided me to upon seeing this card is that something that didn't get full closure could be potentially coming back around. Now, I feel like a lot of times we jump right to like sort of like a relationship coming back around, and I don't get the feeling that that's the case for everyone here. It could be that you have like an ex or a situationship come back into your life and you get to kind of have a little bit of closure conversation to tie up those loose ends that you really feel like you can move forward. I got the feeling though, for a lot of us, this is like a project that we've been meaning to wrap up the loose ends for quite some time. And for whatever reason, personal self-sabotage or the astrology, the energy of the world around us, we haven't been able to tie up those loose ends. So I want you to focus, because we always want to focus on what you can take action on rather than the outside world is doing. So regardless if someone or something is coming back into your life this week, on Monday, I would like you to really focus on what did you put down that you didn't mean to put down? Like what project, intention, set of goals that did you start progress on and kind of lose track of? And sometimes we lose track of things because we literally are not supposed to have them in our lives, where they're no longer in our vibration. So some things you can let go. But in this case, I think that you are definitely going to find a couple different areas where you put something down just because you got distracted or you got frustrated or it just didn't feel like the right timing, and now is the right time. And this does feel kind of urgent. This feels like we only have like a couple day window to really have the best energy to wrap up these projects or to move forward with these projects that we'd kind of put to the side. So I don't want you to get too stressed out about it, but like really consider the beginning of the week a personal reevaluation of the things that you didn't finish. Like, consider the things that you made a promise to yourself that you were going to do that you kind of failed on that promise. And it's probably from some sort of internal wound that needs to be healed. And by wrapping up that project and like really realizing your goal to the fullest, you're actually giving yourself an act of self-love and you're healing a part of yourself, both from inner child wounds and past life wounds. So this is a little bit big. Like, it feels like the projects aren't huge, but they feel huge. There's something in us that's like blocking the energy out of fear, out of what have you. But the actual task itself doesn't take a lot of energy. It's just that you have to get over all of the emotional hurdles to get there. And that's the part that's huge, getting over and healing those emotional hurdles. But by completing the task, you're going to feel so much lighter and so much more confident in your abilities. And you're actually going to be able to like move forward quicker in future projects as well. So that's Monday's card. The Mercury sextile Jupiter of the story is talking about Mercury, our planet of communication, and Jupiter, the planet of luck. So there is sort of a soft, because sextiles are always a little bit softer energy, a little quieter energy, but there is sort of a soft energy of there could be some luck involved in a certain communication that you have on Monday. So if part of this project is reaching out to someone, doing a pitch, applying for a job, having a conversation about a relationship, it could be a good day for that, but not in like a grand gesture sort of way. So we take the relationship as sort of a metaphor. It's not about John Cusack on the lawn with a boombox. It's about like reaching out and asking how someone's doing and saying, hey, I haven't caught up with you in a while. You've been on my mind. Like, how are you? Let's catch up. And letting that lead to whatever it's supposed to lead to, as opposed to coming in and being like, oh my God, you're the love of my life. And I think we need to spend the rest of our lives together. That's not the energy of Mercury sextile Jupiter. Jupiter is supporting those like soft, subtle, not game playing, not sort of like tweaking the truth, but like going in easy with your communications could be kind of lucky today. So that's Monday. Moving on into Tuesday, we do have a little more astrology happening. We have a Mercury conjunct Chiron. So again, Mercury, communication, Chiron's the wounded healer. So I think that some of the stuff that we are working through in our own self-sabotage on Monday is coming forward a little bit more on Tuesday, and probably because we're healing those aspects of ourselves. There's an element with Chiron that feels softer than it normally does. It feels like, again, it feels like we're almost communicating stuff that we're in the process of healing, as opposed to uncovering some like wound that we didn't even know was there. Mercury and Chiron together always resonates for me as like, if you want to do a therapy session on Tuesday, that could be good. But it also feels more like if you want to share with the world how you're healing, it could help the world heal as well. So if you have any sort of public platform, or if you're in a sort of teaching position or a mentorship position for someone, the astrology and the card of the day really supports that, because our card is the Six of Pentacles. And the Six of Pentacles is kind of learning how to give and take with the world around you, of recognizing that the world is giving you support, but you have to also give support back to the world so that it's like a constant equal exchange. So this is talking about being a good teacher, being a good mentor, like not hoarding the things that you've learned in life and the ways that you've healed and the wisdom that you've gained to yourself just because you're afraid of what the outside world might feel if you share those things. So this feels almost like coming out and like being open and honest about a mental health struggle or about a financial struggle that you've recently overcome that maybe still feels like it's a little shaky ground. So you're like feeling a little hesitant, like you almost want to get to like the end of the story and feel like you're completely healed or completely like in your richest era before you share this advice. And this card is saying like, no, the process is important to share as well. So again, this could be on a larger scale somewhere online, or it could be on a smaller scale with just like people in your life that are going to benefit from these conversations. But have the courage on Tuesday to share your healing, to communicate your healing and your process and the things that have worked for you, and even your struggles as well, because sometimes just sharing your struggle makes other people feel seen and heard and can relate to it. So that's what's happening on Tuesday. And I think that that's going to be really important in sort of this like Pluto redirection of our lives and our paths, because you're going to actually find that this might be part of your mission to share in what you're learning. So moving forward into Wednesday, May 7th, we have quieter astrology, but we have louder cards. So we're starting to get into our major arcana cards for the week, which this one starts with the Chariot reversed. So if you're not as familiar with tarot, a little crash course, there's major cards, major arcana cards, and minor arcana cards. And that just basically designates into the two different types of cards. So anything that's numbers or suits like king, queen, not Jack Ace, king, queen, page, knight. Thank you. Brain connection. Those are minor arcana. And that just means that there's more free will involved in those cards. Like you could choose that path, you could not choose that path. Whereas when the major arcana cards come in, the ones that we really think of when we think of tarot, the lovers, the devil, the world, the star, the sun, the ones that you think of when you actually see images of tarot online, those are about fate really directing your path and being involved in the process. So sometimes when the major arcana cards come in, it's kind of one of my favorite movies is Stranger Than Fiction. And there's a part in Stranger Than Fiction where he's, I don't know if you're not familiar with the plot line, he's a character in an author's story. And so as the author writes the story, stuff is happening in his life, but he's like a real life person existing in the same world as the actual author. But at one point, he's hearing the narration of these stories in his head, which is why he's making these connections. And so he's advised to do nothing for the day and see if the plot continues without him. Because if he's in control of the plot, then doing nothing will stop the story. And if he's not in control of the plot, the narration's going to come in and create a plot point for him. And in this case, he stays home for the day. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't move from the couch. And a wrecking crew comes through and tears the side of his building off while he's in the apartment. So he's not as in control of that plot line. Even though he chose to do nothing, the universe at large was still like, oh no, we're going to make something happen for you. That's kind of the energy of the major arcana. I don't want you to think that you're going to get like the side of your apartment torn out, but it doesn't always have to be an uncomfortable push from the universe, but it will be a push from the universe. And the Chariot card is about self-propelled movement forward. So because it's coming through reverse, I'm getting a little bit of a more pushy universe aspect of our Monday card. So Monday's card was like, if you have been stalling on something or self-sabotaging on something and you need to wrap up those loose ends, now's the time to do it. If you didn't do that, or if there were some things that you were still avoiding, on Wednesday, the universe is like, no, we're doing this now. They're going to shove you into the pool or whatever it is that you want to use that metaphor for. And they could do this from events from the outside world, but they also could do it from really uncomfortable emotions within you. So again, I come back to that Pluto retrograde message of really pay attention to the intensity of your emotions, because they are trying to tell you what is a path for you and what is not a path for you in this moment. So if you find on Wednesday that you're really like in your head and your emotions, I know that when I'm not following my path in a way that's sustainable and in true alignment with me, I will get through bouts of depression. And so if you start feeling that sort of heaviness or frustration on Wednesday, don't beat yourself up about it. It's not about the internal struggle. It's about the fact that your emotions are trying to tell you that you're meant for something better than this. And the universe is pushing you that direction. So really think, again, the beginning of this week is about evaluating, like, what projects am I not following through on that really do make my soul sing? And how can I get past that fear? I'm getting a little hit that for some of you, tapping or EFT, both terms of the same thing, could be valuable to you. So if you don't know what that is, look up emotional freedom technique, or if you go to my YouTube, there's a very old video from like 7 years ago that I posted with an example of tapping or emotional freedom technique. But it's about basically using acupressure points and affirmations to shift energy a little bit quicker within you when you have a fear or a hurdle or a limiting belief that you need to get past. And that could be really helpful for us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay, moving into Thursday. We have very quiet astrology. We have another major arcana card, and it's the Lovers. So a little bit of lovely energy coming through after all this hard work. And honestly, I think that's what this is. Again, if you're new here, Lovers can be an external lover union coming together, relationship coming together, or it could be an internal unification of your own divine feminine, divine masculine. Ultimately, it's going to be both either way, because you don't call in the proper partner until you learn to have union and oneness within yourself. So I always like to look at it first as the internal thing, because that's when it's going to create the external situation. But either way, it's a feeling of a coming into union and a wholeness and a completion and a sense of love, of unconditional love, whether it be you're unconditionally loving yourself, or because you unconditionally love yourself, you know how to love someone else. That is the opportunity that's coming through on Thursday. And I think it's coming through because we're spending Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday learning to work with these limiting beliefs and wounds and following through on the promises that we've made for ourselves, and really following the path that's calling out to us in the best feeling way, and also sharing it with the world. So it's like we've created this sort of like karmic uh abundance betting pool. I can't think of a term right now, and I can't edit this out, so I got to type quickly. There's a feeling of we've created this bank of good karma, because we're like, hey, I'm going to follow the right path for me. I'm going to be brave enough to do that. I'm going to heal myself, and I'm going to share some of those lessons with the world. So I'm putting something good out there, and I know that something good is going to come back to me, and something good is coming back to you. So again, always talking about the internal. Really let Thursday be about you being just steeped in your unconditional love for yourself. Give yourself credit for all the work that you've done. Talk yourself up. Give yourself like a moment to like either like in your apartment alone or in a journal or whatever, like talk to yourself with the pride of a really supported lover, and or like a family member or a friend or whatever, like, but like be like, hey, I'm really proud of you, and I'm super excited for where you're headed, and I really can't believe how beautiful and amazing and talented you are. And give yourself that love first, and then know that it's going to show up from the outside, whether it be today or later on. If you continue to radiate and steep in that energy, other people are going to start to treat you that same way. This could also be a coming together of a business partnership that's really, really aligned. Like, we're not just talking about any, like, here's a job opportunity. We're talking about those job opportunities, partnerships, collaborations that, like, you never forget, because it's like a soulmate collaboration of coming together with someone and being just on the exact same page and creating absolute magic and alchemy in the world. That could be this. It could be a really, really divine, unified friendship coming through, or it could be a romantic relationship, or it could be all three if you're really lucky. So that's potential for Thursday. But again, we're always working from the inside out. Do not be disappointed if the outside world doesn't show you this energy on that particular day. As long as you're working on creating it within, it will show up outside of you as well. Moving into Friday, a little, like, again, quieter astrology, little break from the major arcana, but still really encouraging news, because we have the Nine of Wands as our card. And the Nine of Wands, I always like to visualize in my first deck that I started working with, the Wild Unknown Tarot. They have it sort of like almost like a ladder of the wands. And I always think of it like a staircase. So the thing that I always say when the Nine of Wands comes up is your life is like you have been blindfolded, trudging up a staircase, and you have no idea how tall the stairs are. You have no idea how long this journey is going to take you. And you probably started out really motivated and just like trucking along. And when you get to the 9 of Wands, there is a little feeling of, I've been walking up this staircase for so long. I don't think I'm ever going to reach the top. I might as well just stop and go back down. But the message that the 9 of Wands is giving you, it's like your guides or some sort of like overarching perspective coming in to whisper in your ear and be like, you've only got 2 more steps left. Keep going. So that's what this card is saying. So if you do get a little discouraged on Friday because you've been doing a lot of good work throughout the week, this is a sign to keep going. And keep going, like not in a way that you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna like have to keep going forever, but like keep going knowing that the end is so near and so much closer and easier and more accessible than you thought it was gonna be. So just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing the right things. Keep doing them. Don't give up. Don't let that self-sabotage come into play that makes you want to go back down to the bottom of the staircase, because it's going to be a lot more exhausting to start from the bottom and come all the way back up than it is to take those extra 2 steps because you didn't give up. Moving into Saturday. Saturday, the astrology, Mercury moves into Taurus. So Mercury has been in Aries for the past couple weeks. That means that our communication might have been a little more impulsive, for better or worse. We might have wanted to say things and then regretted them later. We might have said things that we wouldn't normally have said, and it actually created opportunities for us. So it can go both ways. But when it goes into Taurus, we're going to be a little more grounded with our communication. It's not going to be quite so impulsive or fiery or off the hook, again, words are hard right now. I don't know why. But Mercury into Taurus it's a blunter communication energy. I attract Taurus friends and family like magnets. So I'm very familiar, and I love and adore Taurus energy, because I do feel like Taurus energy is the unwarranted psychics of the zodiac. Like Pisces moon here gets a lot of intuition credit. Cancer gets a lot of intuition credit. The water signs get a lot of credit for their intuition. Maybe even some Aquarius get a little bit of credit for that, for being sort of like towards the end of the zodiac wheel. But Taurus signs are like a very grounded psychic energy. So they may not even be into like psychic woo-woo things, which is why we don't immediately recognize them for being as intuitive as they are. But I guarantee if you have a Taurus bestie or someone with a lot of Taurus in their chart giving you advice, you're going to look back at that advice later and realize that they were dead on. They probably didn't say it in a way that was super gentle. Depending on what else is going on in their astrology, they might be able to soften it a little bit. My Taurus bestie has a Libra moon, so she's very good at giving advice and making it sound gentle. But if they've got a lot of earth and they're very blunt with their Taurus energy, it might just be like a straightforward, no, that's a dumb idea, don't do that. Or whatever it is, it may not come off with kid gloves, but it's almost always accurate. So when Mercury moves into Taurus, we can communicate very accurate things, but they may not be coming off in a way that's easily heard by others. So be mindful of that. Be mindful of your bluntness as Mercury moves into Taurus, because we do still want to be able to communicate things clearly, but we also want people to not put up a wall because they're feeling sort of like offended or abrasive based on the way that we worded it. So be mindful of the way you word the things that you're sharing when you're sharing your truth with Mercury and Taurus. With that in mind, we have a beautiful little softer energy coming through the cards with the 7 of Cups. So the 7 of Cups is a very watery energy. It's a very creative energy, and it's a very daydreamy energy. It's not so much an energy about communicating or taking action right away. So with Mercury moving into Taurus, you might not immediately want to go out and have these conversations that you want to have or communicate what you want to communicate. It's more about recognizing that you have this power of communicating clear, blunt truth, and then kind of like going shopping in your mind about what it is that you want to communicate. What conversation do you want to have first is kind of the energy of Saturday, because the 7 of Cups is like you have all these opportunities in front of you. Some of them are more realistic or grounded or achievable than others. So which one do you want to pick? And I think Taurus, the uncredited Taurus intuition is kind of coming in handy here, regardless of where Taurus is in your chart. I think that you are going to be able to communicate your needs and your wants and your desires a little more clearly as you're sort of like in this more hazy, watery energy of daydreaming about where you want to take this action. Moving into Sunday, the 11th, Mother's Day, if you're in the US, softer on the astrology, nothing really big happening there, but we have a major arcana card, and it's the Wheel of Fortune reversed. So the thing that I want to say about the Wheel of Fortune reversed is it can sometimes mean a change of luck that feels less fortunate. But the story of the wheel is always really important to keep in mind, because in order for any wheel to keep moving forward, it has to keep rolling. So if you're like one of these people on the wheel, you'll be at the top for a while, but you have to come to the bottom just to make it back up to the top and keep moving forward. So trust that that's a part of the process here. It's a part of being able to recognize that that wheel is going to keep turning, and ultimately you're going to have good times and bad times and good times and bad times and good times and bad times. And that's not a message to like be fearful. It's a message that when the things are going good, you really want to soak it up, so that when things are going less than good, when you're on the bottom part of the wheel, you remember why you want to make it back to the top part of the wheel. Like those good memories are going to keep you moving forward, so you don't get stuck just hanging out at the bottom of the wheel because you're not motivated to go back up to the top, because that's when you stall in life, and that's when you start to feel stagnant and like you're not achieving the things that you want. So again, overarching this message of the week is like, we are trying to achieve our dreams, and we're trying to clarify our dreams, and we're trying to move forward towards them, and we're trying to tie up the loose ends that make us get to the next chapter. And that's not going to be all celebration and parties. There's going to be some hard work along the way. So I almost feel like this is almost an energy of like, there might be a hard work portion of your journey happening on Sunday, where you have to push through something that feels difficult. But ultimately, that's to get you back to the top, so that you remember why you pushed through these harder times. So keep your eye on the prize. Keep your eye on the top of the wheel, and recognize that you will come back up there, but you have to keep moving. You can't stagnate. You can't just let yourself sit in the feeling of depression or being stuck or what have you, because that's quicksand. So get out of the quicksand, keep moving, and you'll make your way back up to the top of the wheel. Okay, with all of that, I think we can wrap up our weekly forecast, and I'm going to do my personalized reading. So if you are new around here, anyone that is a paid subscriber on the Substack, because the content on Substack is almost all free now. So in order to encourage you to be a paid subscriber, I'm no longer withholding content, but I am giving you an extra incentive of being a potential winner of a personalized reading at the end of these forecasts. So if you're a paid subscriber on Substack, you can upgrade. $5 a month, and you'll get entered into all of the weekly readings. Or if you choose to tip your reader during any particular week, which you can do at some of the links that I have below, or that you can find in my quick links on my website, you will be able to be entered in for that particular week. So you can do a one-time entry with a tip, or you can do a multiple entry with a subscription to the Substack for $5 a month. That's how this works. And basically everyone that has either been a paid subscriber for the week before, or that has tipped their reader during the week before, I put into an online name generator, and I do a little wheel spin, and it gives me a name. And in this case, this week's reading winner is Amanda. So yes, we do see names come up more often. So Amanda did get a reading a couple weeks back, but it's because we have a smaller pool. So if that's not incentive enough for you to go ahead and become a subscriber and join this pool of drawings, I don't know what is, because obviously if I'm pulling from 5 people as opposed to 500 people, you have a more likely chance of winning. So just keep that in mind if you're considering joining in. And Amanda, we're going to pull some cards for you. I'm feeling into the energy, and I got a couple decks available to me, but I do think I want to continue on with our Modern Witch Tarot. So I go into these readings now just with a general intention of whatever it is that the person needs to hear, they're going to hear in this reading. So it may sometimes come out as a specific topic. P.S. If you are not Amanda and you've been watching this far in this reading, you might feel called to stick around, because even though this is a personalized reading, it doesn't mean that we're not all dealing with similar energy at certain points in our lives. So trust your intuition if you're still here, and see if there's something here for you. So, first card we have coming up for the recent past is the Page of Wands reversed. So, recent past is feeling like there's like a cartoon or some sort of character that's coming through in my head here that's like almost like an impotent magician. I don't know what sort it feels like a cartoon, and I don't know what my source in my mind is from. I keep thinking of like Merlin from the Sword and the Stone Disney movie. And I don't know if there's ever an opportunity or a part of that this happens, but this is almost like someone who has like a magic wand and they're like trying to get the magic to come out, but it's just like little sparks like coming out. Like it's not like true like bolts of lightning or whatever. It's like just little sparks. So it's almost like trying to start a car engine and it's not wanting to turn over, or trying to make the magic come out and it's just not quite coming out. It's not that it's not there. It's in the wand. It's all contained within you, but it's just having a hard time like bursting forth the way that you would expect it to. So that's the recent past energy. So let's move into what the present energy for this week is for Amanda or anyone that chose to watch. And we have the Ten of Pentacles. So that's a pretty good turnaround there. The Ten of Pentacles is telling me that whether you recognize it or not, you've actually got a really great like support system. You've been rewarded a lot for your efforts. This is a feeling of like the nest is feathered. So even if you're not necessarily in the nest that you would prefer to be in long term, there's a feeling of gratitude coming forward in the present moment this week of like recognizing that the gratitude for what is going to unlock more in the future and get you more towards your goals. But there's a feeling of like looking around and being like, I got lots of food in the fridge, got a roof over my head, I got some good cats to play with, I got some good things going for me. So I've got a good support system in like friends and family and maybe even like business networking. This also could unlock some ideas for movement forward as you start to find gratitude for all the connections you have. You might be like, oh, I haven't reached out to this connection in a while. Maybe they have some advice for me. Maybe they have a job opportunity for me. Maybe they're a potential relationship. Like who knows? But it's like gratitude for what is unlocks the door for more of what you want. That's the present. The future card, we'll see what's coming. Oh, that one wants to come. Ooh, Page of Pentacles. Okay, so we're going from this sort of like page energy in the past of like trying to work your magic but not quite being able to get the juice out of the wand into another page, but this time in regards to money and abundance. So I do feel like there is potential in this week. This week, I'm really getting sort of a time limit on this of like something could happen this week. If you're following the instructions of the rest of the cards and like wrapping up those loose ends, picking up projects that you were supposed to finish a while ago, tapping out those self-limiting beliefs and recognizing the gratitude for the connections that you have and the abundance that you have, something comes forward for a potential new abundance, stability, like money-based, job-related, career-related opportunity. And I know that that's a thing that's happening here. Let me see what's underneath the deck because I'm super curious for a little bit more. Look at the Two of Cups. So there's some sort of partnership potential here. It could be you working with a singular individual on sort of like a one-on-one consulting level. It could be that, again, you have someone from your past that like has an opportunity they want to present to you, a former coworker, a former boss, maybe even just a friend or even something you were romantically involved with. But there's something in regards to partnership with an individual. Like the individual may unlock opportunities with more people, but there's something about your individual connections this week that's going to be really important. So again, with the Ten of Pentacles in the present moment, I want you to evaluate your best and highest vibration connections. And if there's someone that you haven't reached out for a while, and it's not even necessarily reach out and say like, hey, do you have a job opportunity for me? Like this feels like it's a thread that's going to naturally flow through from an opportunity. So like, just be grateful for the people in your life that have supported you throughout the years and like, reach out and catch up with some people. And I feel like there might be something that just comes up in a conversation that naturally leads to some sort of Page of Pentacles opportunity, but it comes from that individual connection and recognizing the human that you're interacting with, rather than just sort of getting in this mode that we can sometimes get into when we're on the search for like a job opportunity or something along those lines, when we're just seeing things as like potential networking connections, and like getting away from that energy and going back to connecting to the human. And that human connection is then going to unlock the networking opportunity in kind of a more unexpected way. I hope that served you. Let me get one more card. I do have the Total Betty Goddess nearby, so I'm going to pull from the second edition, which, speaking of networking connections, currently on the lookout for a publisher that might want to publish it. So if you know anyone in those areas, have them reach out to me for a 90s themed goddess deck. But for Amanda, we're going to pull a card and we're going to see what sort of divine feminine energy is at play helping you with this connection and these goals. Oh, okay. It's on the floor. I saw who it was. I am going to pick it up, but it is Pythos, played by Mona Lisa from My Cousin Vinny, Marissa Tomei's character. So this is a great card with the idea of this sort of like business opportunity networking, because this goddess is about persuasion. And it's also a really great card for Mercury being big in this week's astrology, because it is about like using your words to sort of win people over. Like, if you're not familiar with the film My Cousin Vinny, I highly recommend it for a watch, not just for the entertainment value, but because she is a great example of being super persuasive. Like, one of the lines in the movie is that she could, I'm going to get it wrong because I feel like they get the normal analogy wrong, but it's like she could sell ice to a polar bear or something like that. But she's just very persuasive and very blunt. So she's very in alignment with that like Mercury Taurus energy of like, I'm just going to say what I mean and you're going to take it however you take it. But yeah, using your words to be persuasive, like really look into how you're selling yourself, how you're talking about the projects you're doing, and like recognizing the selling power of your words, which I know is kind of in your wheelhouse anyway. So know that she's on your side helping you. And if you want to keep that movie on or an image of that energy nearby, feel free. But Pythos is helping you to persuade people to your side, to your goal, to your idea, to your intention. All right. Thank you for everyone who watched thus far. And I will see you again in next week's reading.